Greetings in the name of Christ. My name is Heilman. I am a worship leader called by God who is currently serving at a Lutheran church in Blue Springs, Missouri called Pointe of Hope Church, which is a Lutheran church Missouri Synod. And I'm honored to have this opportunity to share a book review. And today's book that I am going to share with you is this one. It's titled Pastoral Helmsmanship, a pastor's guide to church administration. And before you move on and say, yeah, that's not for me, no thanks, I encourage you to stick around because the reason I chose this particular book and this particular topic was of the 15 or so years of ministry experience that I've had. A lot of the frustrations that I've encountered in ministry have occurred due to poor administration, either in my own self and my own practices, or in those of the staff and the leadership of the churches that I had served. So I find that the topic of administration is something that is perhaps lacking in the training of pastors. And there are many churches that the pastors just kind of hand this off to a board or a group of elders or something of that nature. And I don't think that the Bible really encourages that. I think the Bible calls the pastor to be a large part of the administration of the church beyond just preaching the word and shepherding the people. So with that, let me get into it. I have some notes here. So this book, it's a collaborative effort between 3 credentialed authors, which it gives practical information on church administration. The book's back cover kind of puts it this way: the professor, the pastor, and the practitioner come together to write this book. And that's exactly what we have. We have 3 authors. Rodney Harrison, the professor. He currently serves as professor of Christian education at Midwestern Baptist Theological Seminary. He holds a Master of Arts degree in Christian education and a Doctor of Ministry in Missions Administration. Jeffery Klick is the pastor. He began his ministry as a church administrator in 1981. In 1993, he planted Hope Family Fellowship in Kansas City, Kansas. That church, over the years, has grown to over 500 members. He continues to serve as their senior pastor 30 years later. Glenn Miller is the practitioner. He has been an administrator, professor, and seminary CFO. He is currently the president of Miller Management Systems, LLC, which has served over 1,000 churches and nonprofit organizations with their accounting and administrative needs. So obviously these authors are coming from a place of experience and knowledge. So the book is divided into 4 parts. The first section basically is about the pastor and the role of the pastor as the authors see it. And in this first section, the authors start by sharing a ministry storm that they all individually weathered. And the shared message in these stories is that all pastors will inevitably face storms or trials in their ministries. Can I get an amen, right? A large part of administrative work is preparing and planning for these storms. So the book uses nautical metaphors for the remainder of the book, with the main metaphor referring to the administrative role in the church as the helmsman. They key in on the idea that a ship's helmsman is second in command to the captain. So in a church, the pastor is the helmsman, and of course Jesus Christ is the captain, the shepherd, and the pastor is the under shepherd. The helmsman's primary role is to help navigate the ship during times of transition, such as in and out of port or through rough weather or bad seas. Then the authors move into several critical areas of the pastor's call in life to be aware of. First is the call to be the main vision caster of the church. Second is a reminder that good time management is critical to navigating ministry and ministry well. Third is a look at balancing family and ministry. Fourth is a very sober look at the occupational hazards of being a pastor and many things that could lead to a fall in a pastor's life. Things as simple as cynicism and becoming jaded. Lastly is a chapter on how to identify and handle troublemakers in the congregation, something that I enjoyed, which was titled Pirates and Landlubbers. So after establishing these important areas that every pastor must tend to in their personal area, the next section identifies key areas the pastor must tend to as an administrator. In this section, the pastor is encouraged to learn the overall concepts, but is assured that he doesn't have to be an expert in all of these subjects because, trust me, there's a lot. This section is very comprehensive and covers a lot of material. The section starts with the steps to build the right crew, including paid staff and volunteers. The authors point out that Christians are interesting job candidates, and I have discovered this is very true. There are many good practical tips for the recruiting and hiring process. Then they give great tips and perspective on motivating the crew, including a discussion on generational differences, which I found interesting. Different generations respond to different motivational techniques. This section also includes a great procedure for reviews, job coaching, and most importantly, termination. We all end up having to fire someone, and this book has great tips on how to do that well with grace and love. Then the book moves into the less glamorous but very important areas of money management and facilities management. There's a wealth of information here that quickly makes it apparent that no Lone Ranger pastor is equipped to do all the administrative work required in a church. There are simply too many moving parts in ministry for one person to keep track of. The authors place an emphasis on maintaining the highest level of integrity kept in check by systems of accountability, noting that we are representatives and ambassadors of Jesus Christ, and the whole world is watching, and it is of utmost importance that we do everything that we possibly can to represent Christ in the best possible light. Finally, this section walks us through various areas of risk management and mitigation. In today's litigious climate, this is a very helpful part of the book, and another area that a lot of pastors aren't trained in and really don't think much about. Sadly, that ends up getting them in trouble. The book does not get too detailed because laws vary from state to state, but it does bring attention to things that many pastors may not have even considered, like cyber insurance, for example. The third section is the heart of the book. The authors give great insights and approaches to working with people and leading people. The authors encourage the pastor to hone their people skills by learning about different personality types and understanding the 4 phases of group development. They present the reality of conflict in ministry as part of the growth and discipleship process. Ignoring conflict is the surest way to create problems in your ministry. Handling conflict well will have a profound impact on your church. There is a great conflict resolution process shared in this part of the book. Change comes to all, even those who resist it. This is how the chapter on leading through change management begins. The chapter provides a thorough analysis of the process of change and how to lead it effectively. Then there are some helpful thoughts on leading effective meetings, which is an important part of the change process, as well as the day-to-day functioning of the church. Then the authors wrap it all up and put a bow on it with 8 navigational tips and an exhortation to enjoy the journey. The last section is a section of resources that provides several articles, budget sheets, internet resources, book recommendations, and much more. This is there to help the pastor kind of dig even deeper into the topic. So it also helps to crystallize a lot of the material presented in the book. So my review of the book and critical evaluation is as follows. This is a very practical book about church administration. I believe the authors have done a wonderful job of presenting a very academic topic, snooze fest, right, in a fun and engaging manner. There's a lot of real talk from the authors who have lots of church administration experience to share. The book is written in a format that will serve the reader for the length of their ministry, meaning you can use it as a reference source, basically keep it on your bookshelf, and if you need to revisit hiring or motivating people or the 4 phases of group development, you can just pull it off your shelf and go to that section. There are not many books, at least to my knowledge, that really cover the scope of material that is presented here. Each section of this book could represent, in my opinion, a genre of books, including the pastoral call in life, human resources, church law, leadership, team building, and much more. The scope of the book is somewhat of a limitation if this is the only book one might use to inform their administrative approach. That said, one could accomplish much just using the suggestions in this book. There are several things that will serve a pastor well. Chapter 6, which I mentioned before, titled Pirates and Landlubbers, is a very accurate yet tongue-in-cheek look at 21 different behaviors that are red flags to look for in church members, leaders, and oneself. This is based on Kenneth Hawk's book, Antagonists in the Church. And then the authors add 2 additional categories: unregenerate members and those called to ministry but who said no. The last group can be very disruptive to ministry. How many of you have had that person that seems to have all the answers and wants to tell you how to do your job? Oftentimes that person is a person that God has called to ministry, and for whatever reason they said no. I, in fact, in myself, am one of those people. One other area of the book that I appreciate is there's almost zero idealism in the book, which is refreshing for me. Most ministry books that I have read seem to paint an improbable picture of what working with people, especially Christians, will be like. This book acknowledges basic human needs that other books seem to downplay or even consider sinful. One example of this is what they call the equity theory. This is when a real or perceived inequity is held by the employee or volunteer, i.e. their investment is greater than their return, and because of this, certain negative behaviors can occur. This is counter to, in my mind, to what the Bible teaches us. The Bible teaches us not to focus on inequity and just to focus on our heavenly reward. But the reality is this is almost humanly impossible and opens many possibilities of very unhealthy work environments and even opens the door to abuse. So kudos to the writers for acknowledging this. 2 other areas of strength that I found were the budgeting materials, which included the SOAR methodology and the SMART SMART goals. Again, very realistic approaches to these topics. Other authors like to say things like, if your goals don't terrify you, they're not big enough. I, for one, think that is horrible advice. I believe, and these authors agree, that attainable goals are critical to sustain ministry motivation and faith retention and burnout avoidance. The only real criticism to offer of the book, and it was released in 2015, is that it could already be due for an updated revision as the world grows increasingly enmeshed with technology. The parts of the book that touch on social media could be expanded some, with perhaps an article in the resource section. Some book recommendations on the topic would be helpful as well. Additionally, artificial intelligence is becoming a prominent part of our world now and will likely have an impact on church administration, for better, most likely for worse. Overall, this book delivers what it promises. It's a comprehensive guide to navigating the complex seas of being a pastor. The authors have a healthy sense of humor that makes some of the heavier topics lighter and more engaging. This book is a great one-stop shop for ideas on church administration that can help a pastor see the scope and complexity of the call to administrate and then develop a good plan to do that well. Thanks for watching and listening. I'd love to see your comments. God bless you. Have a wonderful life and week. Thank you. Goodbye.